This is Through the Rear View, a podcast from Three Aspens Media. I'm your host, Lindsay Young. On this show, we look back with the leaders, innovators, and storytellers who have helped shape their industries. We unpack the lessons they've learned, the pivots they've made, and the legacies they've built. It's a chance to reflect, reconnect, and get a view of what really matters. In this season, we're focused on the wholesale distribution industry. Enjoy! Hi, I'm Lindsay Young, president of Three Aspens Media. I'm going to go ahead and read the bio of our guest today so that I don't miss a beat. There's a lot to talk about. I'm joined by Ron Paulson. He's a seasoned executive and advisor with more than 30 years of experience in business strategy, e-commerce, corporate social responsibility, and many more things at one of the most influential distribution companies in the world, Grainger. During his time at Grainger, which is a Fortune 300 industrial supply company, he led multiple high-impact initiatives, including the launch of a $300 million e-commerce business, the turnaround of a $900 million sales region, and the development of strategic partnerships with major players like Amazon, Lowe's, and Tractor Supply Company. His leadership, though, extended beyond business growth. He also spearheaded Grainger's community grant program, helping direct nearly $60 million and more than 10,000 grants to nonprofits across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. And in that role, I believe he worked alongside Mr. Grainger himself. Mm-hmm. So now, as the founder of Paulson Advisory, he helps small companies refine their go-to-market strategies, expand distribution channels, and build meaningful partnerships. In this episode, we're going to go beyond the surface, though, and hear from Ron on what he's learned in his 30 plus years of experience in the distribution industry, starting in the warehouse at Grainger. So welcome to the podcast, Ron.
Oh, God. Lindsay, thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward to this and this discussion. I go way back with you when you were at MDM and all the incredible work you did there. So I guess I'm dating us both, but could not be more proud that I'm a part of this today with you and share my insights. And one of the things I really hope to accomplish is being able to share some of my knowledge with others. And if there's any way I can help move this distribution needle forward with future leaders, I'm all in because, I've already been at Grainger for over 30 plus years and can't wait to give back. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm super honored to have you here. So thank you so much. You've had a long and impactful career. Can you take us back to the beginning? What led you to Grainger and what were your first impressions of the industry?
Oh my gosh. Well, that could take the whole hour, but here we go. I thought about this a little bit as I get asked a lot about that. What brought you to Grainger? And I'm actually going to go back to when I was in my summer jobs. All right, I worked at a park district, and in the park district, you have a lot of tools and supplies, and all that safety materials and lighting and all that kind of stuff. And so we'd always get stuff from this red catalog, and it said Grainger on it. There was another one, yellow catalog. I'm not going to talk too much about, but it was a good one, and other catalogs that were there, right? And so I'm like, man, this is kind of a good company. We get things, from them all the time, and it just shows up, and then we do our job. But fast forward a little bit, as I graduated college, I went to Loyola University, and all through my growing up period and paying for college, I worked construction jobs. So Grainger was always kind of around me. But as I was finishing up my, college and getting into roles, happen chance, I was talking to my wife's grandmother, rest her soul. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, Grandma. I'm finishing college and I don't know if I want to do construction anymore and all these different things I was doing. And she goes, have you ever heard of this Grainger company? And now, Lindsay, this is way before the internet. So this was the old days when there was paper involved and articles. And I'd go over, I was cutting her grass on the weekends and she'd come out there with a little article saying, hey, here's more stuff on Grainger. I'm like, Grandma, how do you know about them? And her whole thing was, she worked at what's called International Huff in Libertyville. And they made big machines, right? So a lot of manufacturing, a lot of machining, all that kind of stuff. And she heard really good things about Grainger. So, she opened that door. And obviously I knew about Grainger from different experiences, but that's the one that kind of got me thinking, maybe there's something to it. If Grandma likes Grainger, then I'm going to like Grainger.
That's awesome. And you did, because you stayed there for more than 30
Oh
years.
yeah.
So looking back, what do you think she saw in the company that made her so confident in that advice?
You know, it's the same kind of stuff that I saw when I was, working at the park and construction and other different things. It was a reputable company that would always deliver on the service they wanted. Great people to work with, and never have an issue. If you went back in the day when you called, people would answer the phone and they would bring stuff to you if you needed it. All those different things that made it a valuable organization. So to me, it like I want to work with somebody who has the same kind of work ethic as I do, delivery as I do, someone who's willing to go the extra mile as I do, and Grainger made that possible, and they were somebody who, man, I just felt really good about everything. So that was what brought me there and made me so proud of being a part of Grainger. Even to this day, I'm a proud Grainger Ranger, as so many of us call it. And looking back now at this point in my life and career, it's one of those when you see what the world looks like and you look back at Grainger, man, was that a heck of a journey. And I couldn't be more proud, Lindsay. And you read off some of the things that I've been a part of, and I'll talk more about that as you want. But it really gives you an opportunity to succeed. It doesn't matter where you come from, what school, whatever it is, whatever brings you into Grainger. There are so many people that started part time in the warehouse that were VPs and higher ups, and even if they managing their own branch, doing what they want to do, you get in there, and Grainger's the kind of company that Grandma said, I heard if you work hard, good things will happen and opportunity will come your way. And I knew, Lindsay, I knew I could work really hard. And that's a trait that hopefully I share with those that are listening or watching this today is work hard and good things will happen.
I love that. So let's take you back all the way to the beginning. So you started in the warehouse
Oh,
and
yeah.
unloading trucks, and what you said was like 100-degree heat. Take us back to that moment and then share how that early experience really shaped your leadership approach as you moved up in the company.
That's an awesome question, Lindsay, because you got to start somewhere. So here it is. I'm graduating Loyola. I got Grandma's insight. I go to my little career counseling thing at Loyola University in Chicago, and I'm sitting there going, boy, you go through this book of different jobs, and I've got this college degree now. I'm the first one in my family to get a college degree, Lindsay. And so for me, this was monumental deal, right? So I've got this degree, and I busted my butt in construction, all these different things, all my growing up life. And so I go to the counseling center, and I go career center rather, and open it up, and there's Grainger, and they say, hey, there's a opening at this Grainger facility. I'm like, man, that could be fun. I kind of know that stuff, and I can get in there, right? So Lindsay, I could be here all day, so I'm going to fast forward. I call the branch, 847-965-7600. I still know the number.
Amazing.
7760 North Merrimack, Niles, Illinois. Anyway, I called there at 10 o'clock in the morning, interview, and I got offered a job the next day. So here I am. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually going to get a career thing going, right? So I say, all right, I've got this degree. I got this company. It's not construction, but it's supplies I know a little bit about. I can't wait to go to work. So I go to work, Lindsay. I walk into the branch 146, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, where's my office? I got this degree. I got the piece of paper. It's like I got this, right? It's up on the wall here. I got this degree. Where's my office? Oh no, you're going to start in a warehouse. I'm like, warehouse? And Lindsay, it's August 8th, right? 1988. And I'm sweating. It's 100 something degrees out. I'm in the back and they're like, you got to own this truck. I'm like, okay, what's this truck? Open up the truck and it's a 53-foot semi. And if you know Grainger, anybody in distribution that knows this, and when you open up that door and it's cubulized where there's not a speck of light, there's no air in between any product. And I got to take all this off, put it on carts and put it on the shelf using this little, well, back in the day, symbol reader. I don't know what we use today, and so that's what he did. And it was probably, at first I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I said, I just got done with all this hot, sweaty work stuff, and here I am again. But Lindsay, fast forward, it was probably the best thing ever happened. And when you read about all the people who have, had all these different career opportunities going through Grainger, so many, I think that was the way we did it back then. So many starting a warehouse, and then they worked their way up because you got to know the products to serve the customers. And today we got search engines, we got Google, now we got AI, chat, Gemini, whatever it is, whatever you got, you can find anything. But back in the day, you didn't. You had a catalog and you had to know the product. And the faster you could get the answer to those people walking the branch, the faster they would be, serviced and they get back to work, keeping the world running. So, but that was my start. And this is where, I first met Mr. Grainger. And I was blown away by that whole experience, and we can talk about more unless that's a different question. But it was just a great experience to learn the products and how Grainger operated.
Did you, referencing what you just said, did you actually meet Mr. Granger that early on?
Oh yeah, and so here it is. So the headquarters is at 5959 West Howard, which is about maybe 2 or 3 blocks from our branch.
Okay.
So those of you listening, those of you who are close to corporate, a lot of times you get a lot of help from corporate to tell you how to, make your job better, easier, all those different things, right? But we were really close. At that time, 5959 was Grainger's headquarters. So Mr. Grainger was there, all the other executives and supply chain and product management people, everybody was there. But many times they want to come see a typical branch. So where's the closest typical branch? Well, there was us. So he would come over with a bunch of executives or analysts or business partners or suppliers or whoever, and they would walk around. And Lindsay, it was the first time I saw him, I was like, oh my God, it's Mr. Grainger. He's coming in and I'm like, oh, we're all like freaking out a little bit, like, oh, the big guy's here. No, the guy with the name on the door is here.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Oh my God, what do you do? Are we busy enough? Are we looking like we know what we're doing? Is the warehouse clean? All this kind of stuff. And he couldn't have been more kind and gentle and something I take to this day, Lindsay. He would start in the warehouse and meet so many people back there and just show his appreciation, right? And all these stories now, I never really worked in the DC, but all the stories about him and his father unloading trucks, shipping stuff, that's the kind of leadership, and it's the leadership that I espouse to, that I hope many of your listeners espouse to, be a servant leader. Mr. Grainger showed us the way early on, and he was able to, plant that seed in me. And it goes back to something we're talking about where, people are always watching, right?
Mhm.
So I was watching him and the way he led and the way he inspired other people, the way he looked people in the eye and said, how are you doing today? Is things going well? What can I do better for you? How can we make the company better? And really care. And that's the kind of leadership that he displayed right there. And I've been around a lot of great leaders growing up. In all my growing up years, there's so many people took me under their wings. Not just Mr. G, but the people I worked at a park district, construction, they all taught me something. And you got to always be curious, and you have always got to be a learner. And if you can do those things, you're going to be successful because you're just going to make yourself more valuable day in and day out.
Amazing. Uh, so you've held multiple roles since that time in the warehouse at Grainger, branch manager, VP of business development. And again, like you said, you even got to work directly with Mr. Grainger when you worked at the foundation.
Yep.
How did your perspective on leadership evolve as you moved through these different positions?
Well, it's a great one. And, the most important thing about leadership, Lindsay, in my mind, is you got to serve others, right? And you got to have a huge amount of, humbleness. You're never the smartest person. I don't. And if you are the smartest, then you got the wrong people around the table. And so my perspective of leadership always became where, you know what, I always knew early on that I can't do it alone. You have got to surround yourself. I always told people, no matter what role, even in my branch roles when I was starting, finding my role as the president, all these different roles I've been in. And when I was part of the officer group of the Material Logic, which was when we were trying to spin off in the .com days, all these different things. You look around the table, say, who's sitting around you? And those are the ones that you're going to go to battle with. You're the one those are the ones who are going to be up late when you're up late. I could tell you 1,000 stories about what that means, but get back to your question. The biggest thing I saw from role to role is that you got to listen even more. And the higher you climb, Lindsay, the more you almost got to shut up. The more you got to sit there and listen to the people around you. Because if I go into a room and it's, my staff, and if I go up there and say, okay, here's what I do today, folks. We're going to do this, and we're going to paint the buildings purple, and we're going to, put different racks up. We're going to tear this up. And everybody's going, okay, it must be because Ron wants to do it. I'm not gonna combat him in a meeting. So how do I, make sure that I'm the last one to talk most of the time? I sit there and always try to do that. So it's understanding your role, understanding your influence, your ability to get things done. My job was really to help remove barriers. So what's the thing that's preventing Lindsay from getting her job done? Maybe it's you've got too much on your plate. Maybe your technology doesn't work. Maybe you've got some HR things that someone's not being right to you or whatever. Maybe there's all these other things that I don't know about, but you've got to be able to find those things out. And I will tell you maybe a different kind of story. I hope it's okay. So one of the things that well, I could talk hours about all these different things, but one of my roles when I was president of Find MRO, we're growing like crazy. We started with 7 people, and the next year it was, 100, and then we acquired somebody, and now we got 300 people. I mean, all these things were happening, and we were growing like crazy. It was millions of dollars real fast, right? And it was systems that we didn't, it wasn't the old legacy systems. I brought in a different system that had to talk to a Grainger system. And so all this stuff was happening. So explosive growth, huge personnel, technology integration, product information, and oh, by the way, people integration, which, when you acquire an organization, change management, or I actually call it change leadership, is one of the biggest issues you face. And so here's my little thing that I did that I still to this day I think about a lot. So I was always the first one there usually. It was the long hours. I mean, it was doing most of these startups was not for the faint of heart. I was easily doing 100-hour weeks, and it was really 7 days a week in the startup mode. And those of you who are doing startups, you know what I'm talking about. You never really shut it off. And even in my post-life Grainger now, it's hard to shut it off because it's always on my mind. But what I would do, though, Lindsay, is be the first one there and usually the last one to leave. And I'm telling you guys this for a reason. I would walk around the floor of the building, and it would kind of tell me a story about the day. So I'd just walk up and down the aisles, and I'd be like, we look like we're disheveled, we're not organized. Are there pictures on their people's desks? Are people happy? Are they sad? Is it messy? Is it whatever? And the building would always tell me a story, and I would always be able to sit there and relate to that story and say, you know what, either we got to make it better, we got to do this, or man, I feel really good about this. And it's one of the most important things that I did was being able to feel the presence, the intensity of the organization just by walking around. And I know back in the old days, leadership by walking around or management by walking around, whatever it was, MBWA. I remember that when I got my master's, and my thing was, no, you do that both when people are there and you talk to them and all those different things. And then the other time you do it is when there's nobody there, because the building's going to tell you a story. It's gonna show its wear and tear, or it's gonna show the jubilation that you're trying to bring. So anyway, so that's one of my secret things right there.
I love that. So we've referred to all of your titles. I didn't even name all of them, right? So right behind you on, I
Oh
guess,
yeah.
top left of the screen for
Yep.
people watching, I believe. You have a framed collection of all of your business cards that represent your journey through the different roles of Grainger, which is so cool. Is there a particular transition in that journey that was especially meaningful for you?
Yeah, and Lindsay, thanks for bringing that up. I tell you what, over my 32 years, I recently moved, and so when you move from a bigger house to a transition house until a smaller situation from just my wife and I, empty nesters, you go through all the different things that you've collected over those years, right? And so I had a bunch of Grainger stuff. I mean, I had awards and rings and all these different things. But the thing that I kept was that. And let me tell you a story about my little plaque with my business cards. So for some reason, I kept them. So my mom always wanted a card. She passed away a few months ago, and it even means more to me now because she would always keep one of my business cards. I'm not even sure if people have cards anymore. They do it all in the QR and all this kind of stuff. And so I don't know. But back in the day, you liked them, right? And so I collected them. And so I'm leaving Grainger, and I had them at my desk. And this very nice, kind person came over, and she's like, "RP, are these all your cards?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're my cards." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, so many cards." I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't realize it because time goes fast, especially as you get older, it goes faster, right? And Lindsay, the best thing about this is she took all those cards, and at my little going away retirement celebration, um, she presented me. This was on an easel, and it got me. It got me more than I can tell you because I had no idea that she was doing that. And secondly, to your point, it shows me every day when I walk in my little office here. It's almost a little bit emotional. The journey
Mhm.
from being a branch manager with a guy that the first one to get the college degree, got this landed this great job, was on the branch management development program, opened my own branch, all these great things, and then from all the different things, everyone's got incredible stories. To being the president and vice president and leading Grainger's product information at a critical time when we were launching Grainger.com, and then all the other .coms that's in there. But the one that gets me is the one with Mr. G at the very end, Mr. Grainger, working in philanthropy and helping so many in need. But you asked me the question, what is the one that transformed things? I think it all started moving quickly after I left the branch and went in to start. Back in the day, it was called Grainger Unified Services, turned into Find MRO, and which is ultimately turned into sourcing, and now Zorro's a big part of that legacy and history as well. But it 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 happened because Grainger, again, being innovative, always thinking about what's next. One of the biggest challenges was so many customers, and I don't have the Grainger as the catalog as a prop. I should have one, darn. But in the catalog, we had everything back in the day, but we didn't have everything customers would need. And so many of the big, Boeings and the GEs, all these big customers, the Ford, the automotives would say, "Hey, Grainger, I love you like crazy, but you don't have the thing I need to stir a paint in the vat for the manufacturing at Ford. So can you get it for me?" Well, no, our systems are pretty locked in. So that's when they knocked on the door to me and said, "Hey, RP, we would like you to come out of the branch and try something new. Try something. This is going to be fun. You're going to learn all these new technologies, all this stuff, and you're going to get stuff outside the catalog that we've never had. You're going to help us, expand our offering in ways that you never thought." And I'm like, "Oh, how hard can that be?" you know. So I'm like, oh my God. Because I was working in the branch. At that time, the branch was the hardest thing we did. We did everything back in the day. And so I launched into that, Lindsay, and they put us in, here's another one, 1275 Barclay Boulevard in Buffalo Grove. And we were sharing the building with parts. And we launched Grainger Unified Services. And from there, Lindsay, we started having early success, and that opened so many doors. And it goes back to my earlier comment, having the ability to learn, and being an incredibly healthy dose of curiosity. You got to have it. You got to understand be humble, be a servant leader, get the right people around you, around the table, around the office, whatever you need, and then let them go because they are so much smarter and you need them. You need them to succeed more than you need yourself. And so I think that's the thing that triggered it off for me. And again, it's probably one of the most humbling things that I have behind me there. That every day I look at it and I'm humbled. And I just I want to thank the lady Nikki, her name is Nikki, that did that for me, and it's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, to dive into something like that, very few other companies, if any, in the space had ever done, and for you to not even has I've
Yeah,
never tread that direction before. Like, one, the faith that they had in you to do it, impressive. But two, like the bravery,
yeah,
courageousness of stepping
all the
into it.
above.
Like all of the above, like that's I think, and I'm going off script a little bit, but I think one of the things that I tell people, and I still have a good 20 years probably doing what I'm doing before I might retire. Although I'm a lot like you, I probably won't ever retire.
You
But
gotta stay active.
yeah, exactly. I will stay active.
Yeah,
Is to not, like, even if you've never had experience doing something, saying yes more and just
yeah,
jumping in, because again, if you find the right people to do it with you, and you lean on the skills that you've accumulated throughout your career to that point, you can do more than you think you can do, right?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you spot on.
Yeah.
And Lindsay, that's the most critical thing is getting the right people around you because, I mean, we could spend an hour just talking about one aspect of this, whether, it's the right hiring people. And even if you have to move people, into different roles, I always see it as a failure if you have to fire somebody, right? And it's like either I didn't hire right, or I didn't coach right, or I didn't set expectations right, or, quite honestly, maybe they're in the wrong role. And that's totally fine too. I mean, help them find their joy, right? I mean, life is way too short. I mean, if you're not happy here, you're not doing a good job. I don't want to have to come, always talk about this with you. Let's go find you somewhere where you can be happy. And that's okay too. Because I will tell you, Lindsay, there's so many people that when we've had to make tough decisions, they'll come back to me and say, thank God, now I'm a nurse, or now I'm a teacher, or now I'm a fireman or police or something. They go in different ways because, this wasn't their calling. Their calling was something else. So how do you help them, uncover that? And that's the hardest part. That's what I mean. Taking somebody out, I don't want to say it's easy, but the harder part is being a leader and helping someone to develop those kind of skills you need to succeed. And that's the key.
It's so hard. I agree. And I run a much smaller company than Grainger, but the people challenge is the same, right?
Yeah.
Kind of shifting gears entirely. There's no good smooth transition to this question. You were deeply involved when Grainger was responding to 9/11, and other crises, other natural disasters,
Yeah.
and whatnot. A lot has happened. A lot
Yep.
happened. Not last
100%.
9/11.
No.
Can you share what it was like, though, to be part of the team that provided essential
Oh,
supplies at such a pivotal moment in history? Because Grainger was you had told me Grainger was one of the only trucks let through at the time,
yeah.
right?
I mean, man, Lindsay, this was, I feel like you get me emotional here today. I don't know. This is, it,
Sorry
it,
about
it, um, it was probably, no, I mean, for so many people, one of the toughest days you ever lived through. Let me back up a little bit first before I get there, because you asked about Granger, what it's known for. The reputation is we're always there when you need us, kind of, right? It's for the ones who get it done. But I go way further and much deeper, because we're there when the chips are down. If there's an ice storm or hurricane, tornado, there's devastation, all that kind of stuff. May not always hit the press all the time, but I guarantee you, Granger's flowing in there. I mean, in my region alone, every time something happened, we had emergency response teams, right? And we'd be 24/7 ready to go. What do we need? It's an ice storm. All the power lines are down. Let's get the generators going, all those different things, right? So setting that up a little bit, saying it's what Granger's known for to respond. So I'm president of Find Tomorrow. We're sitting there, and just a real sidebar on that. So we'd have our staff meetings, right? And I'd have my table and be sitting there having a meeting. And one of the things I knew, Lindsay, it goes back to one of your early questions, is how do you know when you're ready for another role? I knew when I was ready, when my team would be able to take over the meeting and I would just sit back, and they would either have disagreements or tell about good things, or here's what we're going to do, and then they'd always come to the best solution, right? Always. So we're in this meeting, and I'll be honest, I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm so proud of this team. I said I could move on another role, because I had already, someone already talked to me about what I want to go to the branches, and that's a whole other chapter of the cards. But back to your question, I'm sitting there, and then one of our customer service people came in, and she knocked and interrupted, said, "Hey, a plane had just hit the building," and I'm sitting there going, "Oh." And we're having our meeting. We're sort of thinking, "Oh man, that's kind of tragic," and not thinking too much of it until she came in a second plane. And now, Lindsay, it's so many of us, we could do a 9/11 show alone, but so many of us hit. I mean, that hit hard. And so here we go. I'm like, all right, Grainger does. We respond, right? So first thing we did was we set up an emergency response in our building. So 24/7. I mean, Lindsay, we had, cords running on the floor, taped up, computers set up all over the place, because now we have to respond to get the needs of the products that Grainger doesn't have, that we're going to put on the trucks that Grainger does have, to get to, the 9/11, where the buildings had come down. So it was something I'll never forget. I've made lifelong friendships, and every time 9/11 comes, so many of us will text, thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay. My son now lives in New York City, and so we every time we go there and we go to the site, I mean, I sit there and I touch it, and I lose it a little bit because so many people and Grainger, the branches, the DCs, our supply chain, the technology, sourcing, every one of us had to respond, whether it's the body bags, jaws of life, all these different tools and supplies, all these things we had to do that were constantly flowing in to respond. And that's what Grainger does. I mean, we've always responded, whether it's 9/11, which is the most catastrophic thing I've ever been a part of, to the hurricanes, the ice storms, tornadoes, the responses, the donations, everything, so it means a lot that we were there. Again, I could not be more proud. And I'll never forget, we came back and it was me and the VP of sales and product manager. We actually presented to the board a deck about all the different things. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I don't know if that's good or bad. But the fact is, I do remember it. And I've never been so proud to wear the Grainger, because you're right. Because of FEMA and all the different things, FDNYA, and so many Grainger people were there, and our reputation was so good that we were flowing stuff in there where others would be stopped and all that kind of stuff. They needed our stuff quickly, and we were able to respond.
It's amazing. That's amazing. You were able to contribute to supporting those first responders and everyone else
Ugh,
that day. Such a critical.
yeah,
And I think, going on a bit of a tangent, but I think that, before I started at MDM, 20 years ago,
yeah,
I didn't know much about the distribution space, at all. I hadn't really heard of a distributor, if I'm being quite frank. Um, but distributors, as you just illustrated, play such a critical role, even if they're often invisible,
yeah,
to the naked eye. They play such a critical role in making sure things keep running, like Granger likes to say, that day and the days that followed, to make sure that really critical resources had what they needed to do their
yep,
job, to literally save lives, to literally, do what they needed to do without, not, without being stopped in
yeah.
their tracks because they didn't have what they needed to do. So distributors really do play such a critical role in
Ugh.
this world. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, because
No, and and
that
and and
story is a good example.
and I don't. I mean, Granger's one piece. I mean, Lindsay, none of that stuff happens in silos, because you got the manufacturers, logistics, the transportation, you got supply chain, you got pricing, who's going to pay for. I mean, you have all the back room. I mean, POs, who's cutting this, all that. Are there agreements in place? I mean, what kind of safety stuff do we have to do? So, I mean, the machine that you have to put in place to respond to something like that, Lindsay, is I mean, that's what Grainger is. I mean, it's how they respond. And it goes way back to my days, in the early days of Mr. Grainger, when, WW was driving around a station wagon selling, AC motors. That was the deal. I mean, going door to door. And so it's what you did that make people safe, secure, and be able to, keep the world running.
But kind of stepping back a few thousand feet, or going up about 10,000 feet, however you want to put it. Whatever the analogy is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let's talk leadership a little bit, Ron. What
Oh,
is
shoot.
one leadership lesson, through all of these experiences you had over the 30 plus years with Granger, that you learned the hard way, and how did it impact the way you managed, teams
Yeah.
later?
You know, the leadership lesson that's most critical to me is being a humble and servant leader, right? You need to learn that pretty quick, because you're not going to have all the answers. So being able to, show leadership, and this goes back into the always on stage. People are always watching you, right? And so when you're a leader, you can't take time off. I mean, someone's walking. How are you walking the elevator? How they're walking in the building? Are you saying hi to them? Are you someone who's communicating to them? I used to talk about leadership, communication. I think that's the other big thing. 99% of everything that falls apart is because somebody didn't say something. And so that's right up your ballot. You got to be a visible leader. And so what I used to do, it goes back to communication. When we were starting out Find MRO, we were small and it was growing like crazy, like I mentioned earlier. So every week, I used to call what I used to call the soapbox. So I come walking out, I jump on a desk, and here's 150 people, and people would gather around, and I grab my, here's the things we're going through, communication, here were the sales numbers, here's we got to get better, recognition, all these kind of things. Guess what? Next weekend we're having a party, and then always let people know where we were. And so, there are pictures of me standing up on all these desks all the time. And it goes back to my earlier thing about walking and understanding the building. But you've got to be a visible and vocal leader that inspires, that coaches, mentors, that shows up when the chips are down. And the great thing about, organizations like Grainger, and then they're not the only ones, there's a lot of great companies out there, but being able to have people who actually listen to what your team is saying and be able to inspire them to achieve things that they never thought they could. I mean, half of my thing, a quick story, and I can't share the numbers, but and I apologize if I'm tangenting off your tangent.
Go for it. Tangent away.
So I'll never forget this. So we're launching Find MRO, and we're in the middle of this thing, and it's growing pretty quick. And I'm like, well, we're kind of down the road. You got the mothership Grainger, and we're new. And back then, if you were kind of not part of the family, you were a little bit on the side. And so, well, we're going to tell you what to do, and here's how you're going to do it, and all that kind of stuff, right? So we got a lot of great support from our corporate brethren, right? And no, they really did good. But there's times when I'm like, okay, so I got in one of my soapboxes, and I sat there and said, we're doing this amount of money, so say X millions. But I said, my vision is to be up here, incredible goals, something that in my wildest dreams, I'm not sure we were ever going to achieve because I had never really, done that before. So it's like, but hey, if you don't set what I call high aspirational goals, you'll always get the 2%, the 10%, the 3%, the 4. But if I'm saying the numbers X millions, like 15, 20X of what we just talked about, I mean, you change the way you think about things, right? You're going to change the way you think about, it goes back to my word about curiosity. You're going to change the way you think about technology. You're going to get the right people on the bus who want to get to that aspirational goal and all those things. The reason I tell you that, Lindsay, is it wasn't that long. When I was in the branches, I got a call from a gentleman named Brian. And Brian unfortunately passed away, not young, and he passed away. But he was at my retirement party. But when I was in the branches now, I'd left Fine. He calls me, says, "RP." I'm like, "Hey, Brian, how's it going?" He goes, "That's going really well." He goes, "You sitting down?" I'm like, "Yeah. What's up?" He goes, "We made it." I'm like, "You made what?" "We made your goal."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Oh," and look, you're getting me again here. I don't know why this is getting to me, but we made the goal, Lindsay. And I said, because until you're at that number, the mothership may not care so much. But if you make this number, we're going to be material to the reporting. And Lindsay, he called me, and I sat down in my chair. I was in the field trying to fix things there. And I'm sitting there going, my God, how many times does the vision, not the mission, the freaking aspirational goal happen? And it did for me, and it did for Grainger, And so I'll never forget that day. But it goes back to some of the lessons you asked me about. What are the things that make sense and inspire leader? It's that kind of inspirational leadership. I didn't say that every day, but I guarantee you, Brian and every one of those teams, they understood what the goal was. They understood the mission. They had a healthy dose of curiosity, and they knew that I would listen to what they needed to achieve those goals. And the things that got in the way, we got them out of the way, and so they could succeed. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but you got me.
That's an incredible story. And my follow up for you is my tangent on your tangent on my tangent is it also, or my comment is when you have something like that, when you have an aspirational goal versus just saying, okay, we're just going to grow 5% again this year. Which if the economy grows isn't that challenging, barring any unforeseen circumstances, is maybe it encourages more risk taking as well. Would you agree? Like someone's more willing to try something new or to think differently. Or
Oh yeah, I mean it fundamentally changes the way you think about things, right? I mean it's a risk reward, and another story. But even Material Logic, that was when back in the Grainger day, we were trying to spin that off with all the digital properties and work with other companies. So we almost created a little Amazon of MRO, right? And that was
Yeah.
the kind of thought. But you have to set those goals, and you have to change them up where there's such a methodology that, hey, you know what, there's a lot of risk, and everybody knew. Lindsay, the number one thing, it goes back to communication, right? And obviously, it's one of the most important things I've ever stated. I mean, there's a lot of things on my list that you have, but you got to be able to communicate that, and people knew the risk. And I told them, I said, hey, here's where we're at, and if we don't get to here, this may not work. And are you? Which I think the honesty, the willingness to share that, okay, we're big people here, and I can handle it, and because the worst thing you could do is say, oh, guess what, we didn't make it, everybody's got to go, see you later. Whereas at least now they're vested, they're invested, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And again, it goes by being able to be a motivational, inspirational, whatever you want to call it, pick your word, to make it happen. But people had no trouble doing it because they believed in what we were doing, and I believe they believed in me. And I'll give you one other story. And if he ever listens to this podcast, or he's going to know I'm calling him out. But there's a guy that I worked with, and him and I actually started in a warehouse. My employee number and his are one apart. And so, anyway, I talked to him and I said, and he joined my team. And so he was helping us, get, sourcing and finding row and all these different things going. And one time he comes up to me and goes, RP, after one of my little soapbox talks, he goes, I got to tell you, if you told me we could do sourcing on the moon, I would believe you and I would go. And so now every time I see him go, to the moon, RP, to the moon. And I'm like, gosh, it's, so it's inspirational leadership, all those different things, and being able to talk about it. And I always share this advice, you're convincing when you're convinced. I'm 100% convinced about Grainger and what we could do, where we could go. And then for me, it was easy to become convincing because, maybe I'm convincing you that it was a good place, because you're believing that, boy, they could do these things. And that's where, we went and where we went, and we could take it anywhere you wanted to go. So it's the same whether it was sourcing, the branches, whether even philanthropy. I mean, that's a whole nother story too, but a
Maybe
lot of
we
good
should
stuff.
do a whole series. Just that. I think that would be fun. All right, so you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot, you saw the you've seen technology shift, the world
Yeah.
shift, everything, a lot has
Oh,
changed in your career, and that's pretty typical, right?
yep. Yep.
But so looking at today, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think distributors face now that maybe didn't exist when you were coming up in the
Oh,
industry?
yeah.
It's a big
Yeah, that's a
question.
great question too, Lindsay. You must do this for a living. So let's see. So the biggest things I see today, and what's interesting, in all candor, it's having spent so much time at Grainger and now being on the other side for, I've been doing this for about 3 years, advisory, right? So I get to work with other distributors, small, big, all these different things, and we go through whether it's the AI, whether it's services and lighting, whether it's safety products, and with this Jovi company, but as I talk to them, I sit there and I go, boy, you know what? It's almost like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I'm not saying, oh, Ron, you're naive. No, I know AI. I mean, the speed. So my thing when we launched, Grainger.com and all the .coms, it was back in the day was, www.grainger.com, and so many people would come up and say, hey, Ron, no, there's only two W's in www Grainger. I'm like, oh God, no, it means the World Wide Web. There's three W's, and here's how we do that. But I look at it today, Lindsay, and I know what I'm doing, and I see all these companies and distributors, and I'm sitting there going, what we're missing today that we kind of missed back in early internet. Everybody's doing a wait and see. You got all this AI, all this productivity, all these different things, and even back when we launched Grainger.com, I mean, we used to have to inspire and even pay sellers to move a customer to the internet. I mean, look at now, everybody in 2 seconds, you're like, oh, I have an account. Back then you had to do it. So AI, I'm finding the same kind of challenges. I mean, the product information needs to be better. Supply chain needs to be more connected. Understanding inventory, optimization, demand planning. The data. I mean, Lindsay, one of those cards, I ran Grainger product information for, years, right? And I was actually on the inside cover or on the cover of Information Week. I'm dating myself again. I don't think that publication's around anymore, but it was me and Don Belinsky holding a hammer talking about, product information. And
Right.
so I sit there and I go, holy cow. But with today's world, I mean, with AI, I mean, you can search anything, crawl anything, find everything, but
Mhm.
those fundamentals have still got to be done. So I'm telling you, there's people who are the first movers. I think so many people are waiting for, well, let's make sure they're good before we're good. And I'm telling everybody on this podcast, don't wait. You can't wait. I mean, the stuff is out there, and you're not putting a brand new ERP system with all this stuff. Get in the game, have a healthy dose of curiosity, work with partners you care about, reach out to me, and I can help line up some if you need them. But the fact is, it's there. So all those things that back in 30 plus years of experience, so many are still the same. Leadership counts, being able to work with other people, suppliers, technology, people, process, technology. Those three are always there. Communication skills, take care of your people, be humble, be a servant leader, and know that you're always on stage.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, everything changes, but it also stays the same
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I remember back, it's not that long ago, but back when I was writing regularly for MDM, we were writing about some of the same issues in the
yeah,
same context that you're reading about now. Maybe slightly different technology or slightly different
exactly right.
challenges, but pretty much the same themes.
Yep,
So, which, that's fine, that's fine. But I think it is a good reminder to people that it might be slightly different challenges, but the solutions are usually
exactly right. The speed and the size of the world are much smaller. I mean, that's a thing, and that's why I tell people don't wait, because in the internet you can kind of wait for all these things to happen.
that's true.
Now with AI and even the stuff I do with AI and ORS Group, I mean, the fact is the stuff they do is so advanced for supply chains, and you sit there and go, well, how come everybody's not knocking down my door? Because you got to get in the game, and and either you're gonna get in AI, and I'm not saying anyone, I mean, chat, all these CRM, you've got all these incredible technologies out there, right? But the
Yeah,
fact is, if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, I mean, they're going to leapfrog you. I mean, that's the difference, Lindsay. It's the speed at which all this is happening, and you don't have to let that happen. You can get in the game, and you can get involved today.
absolutely. So, Ron, you've hinted at wanting to write a book about your experiences. What do you think would be the central theme of your book, whether actual or
Yeah.
theoretical, whatever? But what would be the theme of what you would write about if you were to write about your life?
Oh gosh, Lindsay. I mean, I think about this a lot because I've been wanting to do this, and this is my only healthy dose of curiosity is I don't know how to do it, but I've always wanted to write a book on I call it always on stage. So let me back up. Is it okay if I talk about it?
Go for
So
it.
the one of the things when I was out in the field, and again I've shared with you and everybody that I used to do all these soapboxes, and if you could tell, I like to talk a little bit and hopefully get people excited. So I would always go around, no matter what job, what role, every one of those, I would always got to talk, right? So in my field, I was talking a lot. So I had, over 100 branches and all these different things. And so I traveled regional meetings, district meetings, branch meetings, whatever it was, I would always be there, right? And so when I left the field to be brought in as a vice president of business development, M&A, those things inside of corporate, one of my last region meetings, we used to go to this place I used to call Camp David, where we'd always just think. It goes back to curiosity and get the team. What do you guys think? Where do we want to take the region? How do we get there? We went from worst performing region when I got it. We were number one when I left. So, what do we got to do to get there? And it's those people. So I said, what do you think? And so we went through all that stuff, and then I broke the news, that I'm being called into corporate, and that which yes, where do I serve? I never would reject that. Say, okay, to your point earlier, yes, I will go there. What do they need me to do? The company needs me to, and it turned out they needed me to launch services, which today is a huge part of Grainger is the services. Could be another episode. Um, but the thing they did, Lindsay, was they created a spreadsheet, and there was like 35 uh, characters. I don't want to give it too fast because the book's going to come out of this, but it's one of these things where they gave me a spreadsheet with they call 35 RPisms, right? And leadership traits, right? Things that I would always talk about that I didn't know that they were capturing. And so if you play this many times, you're probably going to hear a bunch of them on here. So anyway, the one that is critical to me is about the book. The one that means the most to me is the fact that I would say is always on stage, number 12. Of that list of 35, number 12 is you're always on stage. And Lindsay, it's so true because I don't care where you are, who you are, what you do, don't do. Someone's always watching, right? They're watching how you interact with other people. Whether it's you're at a social event and you look like you're mad at the world, people see. Whether you're walking in a corporate building and you get in an elevator and you don't say hi to somebody, somebody already sees. You walk in the hallways and you blow by somebody, somebody always sees. So the thing is, the book will be, always on stage, leadership for tomorrow or something like that. I don't know, because we have a lack of leadership. I'm telling you, I see it. I've felt it for many, many years. And if there's a way for me to give back, it's so true. And I'm going to tell you one other story that, again, I'm not going to tell you the name, but to number 12, this is why this one hits me so hard. I was walking down the hall one day, and you know me, I would say hi to everybody, and I see somebody I didn't really know, and I'm like, so how you doing today? Just kind of just a quick chat, and so I'm chatting with them, and then just little hallway talk, and like, oh, that's good, good to meet you, and that kind of stuff. And so it turns out, and I said, hey, if you ever want to chat, because we got in that kind of conversation, I'd be glad to, and pay it forward. I've been mentored by our chairman, CEO. I've been mentored by just a ton of incredible people, presidents, all that stuff. Lindsay, this gentleman, set up time with me, and well, this one kind of gets me too because it's a story. He came up and we met, and he goes, "You don't understand. By you stopping and saying hi, I was about ready to take my life.
Whoa.
But because you said hi and you stopped and you cared, I knew there was reason to live." And this, I'm never going to tell the guy's name, but it goes back to number 12. So you ask me why this is so damn important to me. It's because of that kind of stuff. You don't know everybody's story. You don't know where they sit. You don't know where they live. You know what's going on in their life. But you know what? It costs nothing to be nice. That's on the list too. And mine, number 35, is be somebody's miracle. And that day, I was that miracle to him. And there's people who've been miracles to me. When I'm struggling, my mom passed away a few months ago, and the outpouring of love, they picked me up, right? And they were helping me. But, you're always on stage. You can make a difference in somebody's life. Leadership does count, and we're always looking for leaders. And are you the one that can take this to a different spot? So, I don't know. That's my book. I don't know. One day it'll come out, and I'm not a writer. I don't have that gift like you, but maybe one day I'll sit there and actually plug away at it.
Well, you're great at telling stories, and that's a really big part of writing. So
Ugh.
don't back to the advice that I was sharing earlier, like, you could just jump in and try, right? Like
Yep.
you can do more than
100%.
you can. So Ron, one of the things we're doing as part of this series is asking kind of the same set of questions at the end of everybody I'm talking to.
Yeah.
To kind of pass on that. You've shared so many great stories and so much great advice based on your experience and our conversation to this point. And now we're going to go deeper into that. So if you could go back and give advice to yourself when you were just starting out in this industry, what would it be? If you could have
Oh my
coffee
God.
with yourself at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, I would love it because the thing I would say to myself, Lindsay, is be a sponge, learn, be curious. Be curious, and don't always take for everything as face value as it is. Understand and network, get to know other people. Have mentoring and having a champion, having people. And I'm not saying for I got to get promoted. No, have somebody so they can tell you and provide feedback. I one of the number one things I've always used to tell my team is feedback is absolutely a gift, and I would say I would embrace that. So, being able to, have a healthy dose of curiosity, learn, seek out feedback, seek out mentorship, and again, and number 12, always be on stage because, someone's always watching you. And if they see you're working hard, and even if it's not busy in the building, grab the broom and sweep, or do something, file or clean up. I mean, don't just be there. So, and people are watching that. When I do branch tours and even whatever I do, I'm always looking. Who's that over there? Man, they really seem to have a drive. So, that goes with that whole drive and curiosity and all that stuff. So I said more than one thing. I don't know if you were looking for that,
It's allowed. It's allowed to
but
say.
uh, but that's what I would tell myself because I talk fast and
You can get it all in. So what's one thing, and we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, so I think this will
yeah,
dovetail into this, but what's one thing about the old school, I say old school way
yeah,
of
yeah.
doing this that you think still holds a lot of value today?
Leadership and people. I mean, no matter what, and I even take a step further, Lindsay. The one thing that will never change is relationships, right? And if you want to sell something, or if you want to partner with somebody, if you want to be able to help somebody, you got to build relationships, to get something done or done. One of my things is I don't call it politics. I call it business dynamics because, you and I, maybe I come to you and say, Lindsay, I really think you should use this AI, model. It's gonna save your company, millions. You're gonna be so much more productive. And you blow me off. You say, no, I don't really want to do this. I'm like, why? I mean, it's like a no-brainer, right? So the thing is, I mean, I understand that maybe are getting pushed by somebody else to say, I can't do this because we can't afford it. I got to go over here. It's not that you don't like me. So I changed that word out to make it softer to say it's not politics. That's such a bad word. Business dynamics. No, that's different. It's not that you don't like me, but you have different business things that you're trying to do. So that's something I think a lot about. But relationships is number one. I mean, that's a thing that will never change. And even I see it more now, Lindsay being on the outside looking in.
Mhm.
I didn't realize what's the old adage in life? You never knew how good you had it when you were in it. That was my time at Grainger. I really didn't realize how freaking good I had it until you look on the outside and you're like, man, there's a lot of people that can use help, and there's a lot of people that are there to help you. And how do you do it? So, but build those relationships, and that's a key thing. That will never change. And technology is going to come and go. And I'll be honest, if you want to do anything today, there's a solution for you. There always was. And the competition is going to come and go, always will. But the thing that's always going to be consistent is you and I talking and building a relationship to get things done.
I love that. I love that.
Huh.
Um, yeah, good.
Good, good, good.
Uh, so, based on your knowledge and experience, what do you think should excite the next generation of leaders?
Oh my God, the opportunity. So if you're not excited about the opportunity that's sitting in front of you, then I don't know what to tell you because again, my whole theme today has been curiosity, learning, check and adjust, get involved in the game, building relationships. It's all right there in front of you. Our market, MRO, distribution, industrials. I've never seen a more exciting time to be part of it. Actually, it's kind of cool to be a part of it. Back in the day, oh, you guys just sold toilet paper and light bulbs and all that stuff. Today, I don't know. I mean, I thought I read a stat where 80 or 90% of everything that we touch and do has been touched by distribution. And
It's
so,
wild.
I don't, you got to check me on that number, but the fact is, almost, I don't know what isn't. The computer, the lights, everything I'm looking around my little office here has been touched by logistics, transportation, distribution, all that kind of stuff. So, being able to be a part of that stuff, I would be hugely exciting about. The younger generation is a hell of a lot more knowledgeable about AI than I ever will be, although I'm getting more up to speed. Healthy dose of curiosity myself.
Yeah.
But that young generation, I mean, you have so much in front of you, but just embrace it and embrace number 12, embrace the leadership opportunity in front of you. Know that you can make a difference. And it isn't just about moving boxes in, boxes out, but you can make a difference in somebody's lives, and that's the thing that I hope never changes is that the ability for someone to step in to make a difference in somebody else's life. And as I said, number 35 is be someone's miracle. And you have an opportunity to do that. And it's right in front of you. And this industry gives you that chance to do it.
Amazing. That is a great way to wrap up our conversation, Ron.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for bearing with me for a whole hour, but I feel like it was so great to hear about your stories and the lessons that you've learned. Is there anything else you want to add to what we talked about?
No, Lindsay, I just want to say thank you for making this possible because, it's something that is, I've thought about this a lot. I've talked about the book and leadership and number 12 and all the different things. And you've actually given me a little bit of a voice today that I haven't opened that up in a while. And I just hope I haven't given too much where you got to edit everything out or whatever you do, whatever happens next. I'm just, thank you so much for giving me the time. Thank you for all you do for all of us in this industry because communication, as I've said, is number one in so many categories here. And you can't do anything if you can't tell the story, communicate what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what's next. And you do an incredible job with that. And I'm proud, I'm humbled, and I respect the heck out of you and all you do and your team. And I look forward to how this turns out and if I can help again.
Thank you so much, Ron.
All right. Thank you.
All right.